Hello, and welcome to an episode of ES Repair. I am your host, Mr. Fixit. In this video, we're going to be discussing about hiding partitions and setting active partitions. Now, with this software, which is called the Partition Assistant Home Edition by AOMEI, it is a free for private and commercial use. You've seen probably most my other tutorials that I've done for this software, and here we're going to learn how to hide partitions and set active partitions. The first thing we're going to do is set active partitions. Now, you really probably wouldn't have to worry about this. A lot of software, or especially operating system, is what sets it. All it does is, if you do something with a partition, whether you defragment it or fix some errors on it, things like that, sometimes you can't do anything major to the partition if it is set active without having to reboot the system. For instance, anything like Windows drive C, which is always your operating system drive or your partition, you can't always do anything to the partition without having to boot up the system. That's because its status over here on the end says system. And you can't do some things to other drives because they're set to active. It means that the operating system is currently using that drive. So if anything was seriously to be done to it, then you would have to reboot the computer in order to make the changes. That's all it stands for. Now, what we're going to do is show you how to set it, and it's very simple. We will take the partition here, which is my virtual memory, and I'm using this to control my virtual memory. And this is set up so my computer can access the page file much quicker. But we'll get into that some other video. What we're going to do is set this partition to active. To do so, you select a partition that you want to activate or set to active, and then you can right click, choose advanced, and then you have the third option for set active partition. You also have it over here on the left for set active partition. You also have it up here in the partition menu. Choose advanced, and then you'll see it set active partition. Now it will give you a warning saying that setting this partition as active may cause the primary partitions on this disk to change to inactive. Now, what this means is if the drive contains a partition that is already set to active, if you change another partition on the same drive to active, then the previous partition that was active will become inactive, which I will show you momentarily. Now, if you're sure that you still want to set the partition as active, choose OK. Now, you'll notice up here where it's highlighted at the end in the column for status, it now says active. Now, again, once you set a partition active, that means that anything else that affects the system, you must have to reboot the system in order to make the changes. Now, to my knowledge, once you set the partition as active, you cannot deactivate or deactive the partition, or at least I haven't figured out how yet. But what happens now, let's say down here we have my partition. Now, as you can see here, it already says that that partition is active. Now, as it said earlier, if you was to set another partition, we'll do this one. It's on the same drive. You can only have one active partition. Even though you can have up to 4 partitions on the drive, only one of those can be active. Now, we'll right click it, we'll go to Advanced, and then choose Set Active Partition. And again, it gives you the same warning. As you can see here, remember here where it said that it was active? Well, now, since we changed it, we made this one active, it automatically made the other partition become inactive, as you can see here. And this is what it means, that if a partition is already active and you make another partition active, it's going to make the original one inactive. And that's what this refers to. Now, remember that when you do your operations, to be sure that you come down here to pending operations, look over what you're going to have it do, and then choose apply. Now what happens is it's going to lock the system. Now, remember right here where I told you that when you set active partitions, now if it's being used by the system, like my virtual memory partition is, you can't make any changes to it because it's in use. Now, the active partitions basically tell which partitions are booting up the system. That's basically all it is. And you should probably, if you're using flash cards, you'll probably notice that they're set for active, and that's especially if you're using Ready Boost, because the system's using it. And as you can see here, reboot required. That means you can't make any changes to the partition without having to reboot the drive. And then once you choose OK, you check it, the time it's going to take, you choose Proceed. Now it will tell you if there's a drive that it cannot lock. You can try to retry it. And this will come up. If it can't lock the drive, this will come up. And then all you have to do is choose Proceed. And then you'll have to choose Restart Now. And it will reboot the system into a pre-operating mode. And then make the changes and then reboot, as I've shown before in other videos. So let me cancel that. We'll change this one. Go to Advanced, Set Active Partition, choose OK, and then choose Apply. And here you'll see that it doesn't require a reboot. Then we choose Proceed, choose Yes, and you're done. Now you can see what's happened. This one here has become inactive, and this one now is active. Well, that's basically all you're doing when you need to set a partition to be active. It basically says that this partition can be used to boot up the system. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about are hidden partitions. You may not notice it, but your computer, if you're running Windows 7 and Windows 8, that you may have some hidden partitions. If you have Windows Vista, you may have hidden partitions. It depends on the manufacturer. But I have seen these on Windows 7 platforms. What happens is the manufacturer is hiding a partition on there. And the reason for that is because some people have been deleting their recovery partition. The partition here that I have highlighted is my computer's restoration or recovery partition. It contains all the software, the operating system, everything the computer came with on the day it was built or the day you bought it. And people have been deleting the partition and without making a backup. Now, I will be doing some tutorials for the same kind of software here. It's a different software that AOMEI has developed. It's a backup software which is in the beta stage, which means that it's out being tested. I will be doing one of those. And it's a good idea because it helps if you make a screw up, you delete the wrong thing, at least you'll have a backup. So stay tuned that I will have those coming out hopefully soon. But this is the purpose of hiding partitions. Now, if a partition is hid, that means your operating system cannot see it. Therefore, you know nothing about it. However, this software will identify a hidden partition. Let me demonstrate. We'll take my ES Repair demo partition on disk 3 that I have highlighted, and we're going to hide it. Now, hiding it is fairly simple. Once you have the partition to hide, and you can hide any partition. The only thing you can't do is hide a system partition, such as drive C. You cannot hide that partition because the operating system depends on it. Now, if you have stuff like this one here, I have all my movies, I have all my videos, all my downloads, everything on this drive. Now, I can hide it if I wanted to. Especially if you got sensitive stuff on there. If you have a secondary drive and you have hidden sensitive stuff on there, you can hide it from other people. But this software can unhide it. So there's really no security to it. But if you need to protect something, then you can always hide a partition. Well, to hide one, you can right-click the partition, choose Advanced, and the second option is Hide Partition. Now, you can also find it over here on the left, and you can also find it up here in the Partition menu by clicking on Partition and then going down to Advanced and then Hide Partition. So there are 3 ways that you can do this. Now, heed the warning. Hiding the partition may cause drive letters to change. It's not a definite, but it says that it can change. And it's a warning. Now, I'm going to go ahead and hide it. Now, as you can see, I don't know if you can see that or not where I got my mouse cursor at. It's showing an asterisk. It's not showing a drive letter anymore. It's showing an asterisk. That means that the partition is now hidden. Now, if you'll look here, where it's highlighted up here, you'll notice under status, it also says hidden. This means that the partition is now hidden from the operating system. All you have to do now is click Start, go to Computer, and you'll notice right here, this is G. This is one of what we're going to hide. Now, you'll notice it's down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the list. We have all my hard drives here, 6 in total. Now, this is what's going to happen once we complete the apply the new changes. So we'll come down here, we'll see our pending operations, choose Apply. We'll see that the pending operation, this is what it's going to do. It's going to hide the partition. It's going to, from J to an asterisk. That means without a drive letter, the operating system cannot use it and does not see it. We'll choose Proceed. Choose Yes. And now we have a hidden partition. Notice right here it says now it's hidden. To check, let's go back to Start. Go to Computer. Now, have you noticed what happened? You don't see G on here anymore. You see C, D, E, and F, but it goes to Z, and down here you have J, L, and all the rest of them. Well, you don't see G. This is what happens when you hide a partition. It's unseen by the operating system. Now, what happens if you do have a partition that's hidden? Now, you can unhide it simply by doing what we did a while ago. You can right-click the partition, or you can choose it over here. You'll notice that it no longer says Hide Partition. It says Unhide Partition. Same thing here. You'll notice that it says Unhide Partition. All you have to do is click on that. Now, it does give you a warning that if the partition has no drive letter after unhiding, you may need to restart your computer. And what happens is, in some instances, of course it didn't do it on this computer as you noticed, in some cases a drive letter is are changed when you hide a partition as I demonstrated. Well, what happens now is if you unhide a partition, it may not have a drive letter, and if it don't, then you have to reboot the computer in order for the operating system to assign a new drive letter. So we'll click OK. You'll notice that the drive letter did come back. This sometimes happens if the partition hasn't been accessed by the operating system before, as to why you may need to restart the computer so the operating system can assign a new drive letter to it. Now, this is what it's going to look like when it's finished. We'll go down here, we'll check our pending operations, and then choose Apply. Here it's going to unhide the partition. We'll choose Proceed, and then choose Yes. And there you go. Now your partition is unhidden. And here it does have a drive letter, so no restart is required. However, your case may be somewhat different. Well, that's the end of this video. I've shown you how to unhide partitions and hide partitions, and how to set an active partition. I am your host, Mr. Fixit. This has been a presentation by ES Repair. At the end of the video, I do have a link for you that you can download this free software. Below in the description below the video, I also have a link to the company's website to download the free software. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching.